What happens when a billionaire tech CEO meets a construction worker in the middle of nowhere? This is the story of Maya and Marcus, two people from different worlds who discovered that love isn't just about finding someone, it's about building something extraordinary together. Their journey will challenge everything you think you know about success, purpose, and what it truly means to rescue someone. Grab your favorite drink, settle in, and prepare for a story that will remind you why authentic connection matters more than any algorithm could ever calculate. The Mojave Desert stretched like an alien landscape in every direction, its vastness broken only by the occasional Joshua tree reaching twisted arms toward the relentless California sun. Heat waves danced off the asphalt of Highway 62, creating mirages that disappeared as quickly as they formed. Maya Chen sat in her disabled Tesla Model S, watching the battery indicator flash red warnings she'd been ignoring for the past 20 miles. Her phone showed no signal. Ironic for someone who'd built a billion-dollar telecommunications company on the promise of universal connectivity. The air conditioning had failed 10 minutes ago, and despite the tinted windows, the California sun was turning her luxury sedan into an oven. Maya pressed the engine start button again. Nothing. The silence was deafening after years of living in the constant hum of Silicon Valley. No traffic, no notifications, no meetings, just the desert and her growing panic. She'd been driving aimlessly since walking out of the Apex Technologies board meeting 3 hours earlier. After 15 years of building the company from her Stanford dorm room, they'd voted her out. Market forces, they'd called it. Investor concerns about leadership direction. The real reason was simpler. She'd refused to implement the surveillance features their government contracts demanded. A figure appeared in the distance, wavering like a mirage at first. As it drew closer, Maya could make out a young man walking steadily along the highway's shoulder. He appeared to be in his early 20s, tall and lean, with rich dark skin that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the harsh sunlight. He wore faded jeans, work boots, and a long-sleeved shirt despite the heat. A worn canvas messenger bag was slung across his shoulder. He approached her car without hesitation, but with careful respect, stopping a few feet from her window. "Looks like you're having some trouble," he called out, his voice carrying a slight southern accent that seemed to slow down time itself. Maya rolled down her window, immediately feeling the desert heat rush in. "Battery's dead, I think, and my phone has no service out here. Mind if I take a look?" He set down his bag with practiced care. "I'm Marcus, by the way." "Maya." She studied his face, strong features, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything while giving away little. "You're not concerned about stopping for a random stranger?" Marcus smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. "Out here, we're all just people who might need help. Besides, you don't look particularly dangerous." Despite everything, Maya laughed. When was the last time someone had made her laugh? "I can be pretty dangerous in a boardroom." "Good thing we're not in a boardroom then." She popped the hood and stepped out, immediately regretting her choice of designer heels and lightweight blouse. The heat hit her like a physical force, and the pavement radiated warmth through her thin soles. Marcus moved around the car with easy familiarity, examining the engine with the methodical attention of someone who understood machines. From his bag, he produced a small electronic device, jumper cables, and what looked like a portable battery pack. "You come prepared," Maya observed. "Have to out here." He connected the battery tester to her car's terminals. "Yep, completely drained, but this should get you running again." He gestured to his portable pack. "Solar charged. I was hiking back from a water cache maintenance run when I saw you." "Water cache?" "Volunteer work. Desert rescue and trail maintenance. A lot of people underestimate this place, get in trouble when their cars break down or they run out of water hiking." He began connecting the jumper cables with practiced efficiency. "Of course, most don't get stranded in a $100,000 car." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the sun. "It's actually closer to 150. Marcus paused, jumper cable in hand, and looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Right." The silence stretched between them as he finished the connection. Maya watched his hands. Strong, careful, with old scars that spoke of real work. Everything he did seemed purposeful, unhurried, When was the last time she'd met someone who wasn't constantly checking their phone or rushing to the next appointment? "Try starting it now," Marcus said. The Tesla came to life immediately, the dashboard lighting up with familiar blue glows and soft chimes. Maya felt relief flood through her, followed immediately by something else. Disappointment that this encounter was ending. "How much do I owe you?" She reached for her purse, then remembered she didn't carry cash. "I could Venmo you, or—" "Nothing," Marcus said, already packing up his equipment. "I'm sorry. You don't owe me anything." He slung his bag over his shoulder. "Just drive safe, and maybe keep some emergency supplies in the car. Water, at least." Maya stared at him. In her world, everything had a price. Every favor came with expectations. "You won't take anything? Not even gas money?" "I've got what I need," he said simply. Something in his tone made her push further. "At least let me give you a ride somewhere. It's got to be 110 degrees out here." Marcus considered this, glancing up at the sun. "There's a bus stop about 5 miles up the road, near 29 Palms, if you're headed that way." During the drive, Maya learned that Marcus worked construction during the week. Solar panel installation, which he'd taught himself because the desert's got sun, might as well use it. Weekends he spent volunteering with Mojave Desert Land Trust, maintaining trails and water caches for hikers. "Why rescue work?" she asked as they drove through the moonscape of Joshua Tree National Park. "Had a counselor in high school who used to take us camping. First time I'd been anywhere that quiet." He looked out at the landscape rolling past. Found out later he'd been in trouble as a kid too. Drugs, gangs, the whole thing. But someone helped him find a different path. "And he helped you find yours?" "He showed me that taking care of the land was another way of taking care of people, that you didn't have to be rich or famous to make things better." Marcus glanced at her. "What about you? What's someone who drives a Tesla doing broken down in the middle of nowhere?" Maya gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. "Running away, I guess." She found herself telling him about the board meeting, about 15 years of building something she believed in, only to watch it be perverted into another surveillance tool for authoritarian governments. About walking out when they wouldn't listen to her concerns about user privacy. "So you gave up a billion-dollar company over principles?" Marcus asked. "I gave up control of a billion-dollar company. There's a difference." She sighed. "Though the stock options I'm losing might as well be $1 billion. Sounds like you made the right choice." "Does it? All my friends think I'm crazy. My family thinks I've lost my mind. Maybe I have." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "My foster dad, one of the good ones, used to say that sometimes the most sane thing you can do is look crazy to crazy people." When they reached the bus stop, little more than a metal bench and a faded sign in the middle of nowhere, Maya felt an odd reluctance to see him go. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "If you ever need anything," she said, then stopped. What could she possibly offer him? Her world of tech conferences and venture capital meetings seemed impossibly foreign to this man who fixed things with his hands and spent weekends maintaining water sources for strangers. Marcus glanced at the card, his eyebrows rising slightly when he read her title, CEO and founder, Apex Technologies. "Thank you, Miss Chen." "Maya," she corrected. "And thank you for everything." "Maya." He smiled again, that transformative expression. "Take care of yourself out there." As she drove away, Maya watched him in her rearview mirror until he disappeared. For the first time in years, she felt like she'd met someone who saw her as just Maya. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the tech wonder kind. Just a person who'd needed help. For the next week, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. Not just his kindness, though that had been remarkable, but the quality of his presence. He'd been completely there, completely himself, in a way that seemed impossible in her hyper-connected world. She found herself driving the same route the following Saturday, telling herself she was just exploring the desert. When she spotted a familiar figure hiking toward the mountains with a heavy pack, she pulled over before she could talk herself out of it. "Need a ride to the trailhead?" she called out her window. Marcus turned and his face broke into that smile when he recognized her. "Maya, everything okay with the car?" "Perfect. But I was thinking, I've never done any real hiking. Maybe you could show me?" Marcus looked pointedly at her outfit. Designer athletic wear that had never seen actual athletics. Brand new hiking boots that probably cost more than he made in a week. A small decorative backpack that couldn't hold more than a water bottle and a granola bar. "It's not exactly a casual stroll," he said diplomatically. "I'm tougher than I look." Something in her tone, a vulnerability she rarely let show, made him nod. "But we start easy, and you'll need real gear." 2 hours later, Maya found herself at a local outfitter, watching Marcus select equipment with the same careful attention he'd given her car. He ignored the expensive, high-tech options, choosing instead items that were durable, practical, and reasonably priced. "This'll keep you alive," he said, handing her a basic internal frame backpack. "Everything else is just marketing." The woman behind the counter, a weathered woman in her 50s with arms like rope, looked between them with curiosity. "First time in the desert?" she asked Maya. "Yes. You picked a good guide. Marcus here knows these mountains better than anyone." As they loaded Maya's new gear into her car, she asked, "How often do you come here?" "Every weekend for the past 3 years. Sometimes weekdays too, if I can get off work." He closed the trunk. "The desert gets in your blood. Most people think it's empty, barren, but it's full of life. You just have to know how to see it." The trail he chose was moderate but challenging enough to demand Maya's full attention. Within an hour, her expensive workout clothes were soaked with sweat, and her new boots were already showing scuff marks. But she found herself oddly exhilarated. Marcus was a patient teacher, showing her how to read trail markers, how to conserve water, how to spot the subtle signs that meant weather was changing. He pointed out plants she'd never noticed: ghost flower and desert willow, barrel cactus storing precious water, creosote bushes that could live for thousands of years. "The desert teaches you about time," he said as they rested under an overhang of red rock. "Out here, you think in terms of seasons, years, decades, not quarters and fiscal years." "Is that a dig at my career?" "It's an observation about perspective." He handed her his water bottle when he noticed hers was empty. "You spend your life watching stock prices change by the minute. Out here, some of these Joshua trees are older than your entire industry." Maya looked around at the landscape, harsh, beautiful, utterly indifferent to human ambition. "How did you find this place?" "Crash landed here, more like." Marcus stretched his legs, and Maya noticed a long scar running up his left calf. "Aged out of foster care at 18. Had nowhere to go, no real skills except what I'd picked up in shop class. Ended up sleeping rough for a while." "Here?" "Couple towns over. Got arrested for vagrancy, spent a night in county. The deputy who processed me, older black guy, ex-military, he took an interest. Said he ran a program for at-risk youth, teaching outdoor skills. Told me if I was going to be homeless, might as well learn to do it safely." Maya found herself hanging on every word. In her world, people curated their origin stories for maximum impact. With Marcus, she sensed she was getting the unvarnished truth. The program was 6 months: wilderness survival, search and rescue training, basic construction skills. First time in my life I felt useful, like I had something to offer. He stood, shouldering his pack. "Come on, I want to show you something." They climbed for another hour, the trail becoming progressively more difficult. Maya's lungs burned and her legs felt like rubber, but she pushed on. Finally, Marcus stopped at what seemed like an unremarkable spot on a ridge. "Look," he said quietly. Maya followed his gaze and gasped. Spread below them was a hidden valley, green and alive, fed by a natural spring. Palm trees clustered around pools of clear water, and the air carried the sound of running water and birdsong. "It's incredible," she breathed. "Most people never see it. They stick to the main trails, take their selfies at the famous spots, go home. But the desert's got secrets for people willing to look harder." They sat by the spring, sharing the lunch Marcus had packed, simple sandwiches that tasted better than anything from her usual upscale haunts. Maya found herself talking more freely than she had in years, about the pressure of building a company, about never knowing if people liked her or her money, about feeling like she was living someone else's life. "When I started Apex, it was about connection," she said, trailing her fingers in the cool water. "Bringing people together, making communication available to everyone, regardless of income or location. Somehow it became about data harvesting and government contracts." What would you do differently? Marcus asked. Everything. Start smaller, stay private longer, actually listen to users instead of shareholders. She laughed bitterly. Of course, that's easy to say now that I'm out. Maybe being out is the beginning, not the end. Something in his voice made her look at him. What do you mean? You've got resources, experience, connections, and now you've got freedom. That's a powerful combination if you know how to use it. As the afternoon wore on, Maya found herself studying Marcus when he wasn't looking, the way he moved through the landscape like he belonged there. How he noticed everything, the shift in wind direction, the call of a hawk circling overhead, the subtle change in the color of rocks that indicated different geological layers. Have dinner with me, she said suddenly as they prepared to head back. Marcus looked surprised. I'm not really the restaurant type. Not a restaurant, let me cook for you. I make excellent reservations. He laughed, the first full laugh she'd heard from him. How about I cook instead? You can watch and try not to burn anything. That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen island in her Malibu house, watching Marcus prepare what he called regular food. Jerk chicken, coconut rice, plantains, and vegetables, seasoned with spices she'd never heard of. Her kitchen, normally sterile and unused except by her housekeeper, came alive under his hands. Where did you learn to cook like this? She asked. Foster homes, mostly. Some were better than others, but I always helped in the kitchen when they'd let me. Mrs. Rodriguez, she had me for 2 years when I was 12. She taught me that cooking for people was a way of loving them. He glanced at her. Plus, when you don't have much money, you learn to make a little go a long way. They talked until 3 a.m., moving from the kitchen to the deck, overlooking the Pacific. Marcus told her about his childhood. 7 different homes before he was 18, each one teaching him something different about survival and resilience. Maya found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone. About the loneliness of success, about feeling like she'd lost herself somewhere between Stanford and Silicon Valley. You know what the weird thing is? She said, curled up in a deck chair with a blanket. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I've never felt poorer than I do right now. Maybe that's because you're finally seeing the difference between wealth and richness, Marcus said. I've been poor most of my life, but I'm rich in ways that matter. Good friends, work that means something, a connection to something bigger than myself. When he left that night, Maya felt more like herself than she had in years. But she also felt something else. A growing awareness that she was falling for someone whose world was completely foreign to hers. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of her full-length mirror, adjusting the neckline of her black cocktail dress for the 10th time. The Apex Technologies annual gala was tonight, an event she'd started 5 years ago to celebrate innovation in sustainable technology. Even though she was no longer CEO, the board had asked her to attend as founding member and major shareholder. She'd asked Marcus to be her date. The idea had seemed natural when she'd suggested it, sitting by his truck after another desert hike. But now, looking at herself in the mirror of her Beverly Hills penthouse, she wondered if she was making a massive mistake. Marcus arrived precisely on time, wearing a charcoal gray suit that fit him perfectly. Maya had offered to take him shopping, but he'd declined, saying he had something appropriate. She'd wondered where a construction worker would get a suit like that, then immediately felt guilty for the assumption. You look beautiful, he said when she opened the door, and the simple sincerity of the compliment was worth more than all the practiced flattery she usually received. You clean up pretty well yourself, she replied, then added more quietly, Are you sure about this? These things can be pretentious, superficial, full of people who think their money makes them better than everyone else. Marcus's tone was light, but she caught the edge underneath. I was going to say challenging. Maya, I'm not going to embarrass you, if that's what you're worried about. That stung because it was at least partly true. That's not, I just want you to be comfortable. I appreciate that, but I'm a grown man. I can handle a dinner party. The Sunset Tower Hotel ballroom was a study in understated elegance, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, tables set with crystal and silver, arrangements of orchids and succulents in deference to the sustainability theme. Maya had attended dozens of similar events, but seeing it through Marcus's eyes, she noticed how everything was designed to display wealth rather than celebrate innovation. Heads turned as they entered. Maya was used to attention. She was young, successful, and had been on the cover of Forbes twice. But tonight felt different. She could practically hear the whispered questions. Who was he? Where did he come from? What was Maya Chen doing with a man who clearly wasn't part of their world? David Lowenstein, her former business partner and current CEO, approached with his trademark shark smile. Maya, we weren't sure you'd come. His eyes flicked to Marcus with barely concealed curiosity. And you brought a guest. David, this is Marcus Brooks. Marcus, David Lowenstein, current CEO of Apex. David extended his hand with the kind of firm grip designed to establish dominance. Marcus shook it calmly, neither intimidated nor trying to prove anything. Mr. Brooks, and what do you do? I work in renewable energy, Marcus replied without elaborating. Oh, which company? I know most of the players in the space. Solar installation, residential and commercial. Maya watched David's expression shift from interest to polite dismissal. Ah, manual labor, how? Honest. Before Maya could respond, Marcus smiled pleasantly. Someone has to actually build the infrastructure you guys design from boardrooms. But I imagine you don't think much about that part. The comment hung in the air like a challenge wrapped in politeness. David's smile tightened. Well, enjoy the evening, he said, already looking past them to more important guests. As David walked away, Maya touched Marcus's arm. I'm sorry, he's an ass? Marcus's voice was mild. I've met plenty. They usually reveal themselves pretty quickly. They found their table. Maya was seated at the sponsor's table near the stage, a courtesy she suspected she wouldn't receive next year. The other guests were the usual mix of tech executives, investors, and philanthropists she'd known for years. They greeted her with the kind of careful warmth reserved for fallen royalty. Marcus was polite to everyone, answering questions about his work without defensiveness or apology. Maya watched him navigate conversations about renewable energy policy, urban planning, and economic development with intelligence and insight. But she also saw how he was positioned, as her interesting choice, her walk on the wild side, her midlife crisis made manifest. So you do actual installation? Asked Jennifer Walsh, wife of a prominent venture capitalist. How fascinating. Do you work on houses? Sometimes. Also businesses, schools, low-income housing projects. Oh, the charity work, how rewarding that must be. Maya bristled at the condescension, but Marcus remained unfazed. It's not charity. It's business. Solar power is cheaper than fossil fuels now. These communities save money while reducing their environmental impact. It's good economics and good policy. Of course, Jennifer said with the kind of smile that indicated she wasn't really listening. Maya, you must be so proud to be supporting small business. The implication, that Marcus was somehow a project of Maya's, hung in the air. Maya felt her cheeks burn. Actually, Marcus said quietly, Maya doesn't support my business. We're not in a mentor-mentee relationship. We're dating because we care about each other. The table fell silent for a moment. Jennifer looked embarrassed, and Maya felt a surge of gratitude mixed with mortification. The evening continued with similar interactions. People assumed Marcus was there as Maya's charity case, her good deed, her inspiration for whatever nonprofit venture she'd launch post-Apex. No one seemed to consider that he might be there because she was falling in love with him. During the dinner speeches, self-congratulatory talks about innovation and disruption, Maya noticed Marcus's growing tension. His jaw was tight, and he'd stopped responding to the casual condescension with patient humor. After the dessert course, he excused himself. Maya found him on the hotel's terrace, leaning against the railing and looking out over the glittering cityscape. I should have warned you, she said, joining him. These people, they're not all like that. Aren't they? He turned to face her. Maya, I've been the only black person in plenty of rooms. I'm used to people making assumptions, but tonight what? Tonight I realize that you're making assumptions too. That stung. What do you mean? You brought me here to prove something. Maybe to them, maybe to yourself, but you didn't bring me as your partner. You brought me as your statement. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. That's not. When Jennifer assumed you were supporting my business, you didn't correct her. When David dismissed me as manual labor, you apologized to me instead of calling him out. When people treated me like your project, you let them." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I didn't know how to handle it. I've never brought someone like you to an event like this." "Someone like me?" "I didn't mean it that way." "Yes, you did, and that's the problem." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "I don't fit in your world, Maya, and I'm starting to think you don't really want me to." "That's not true. I want you to be yourself." "No, you want me to be a version of myself that doesn't make you uncomfortable in front of your friends." They stood in silence, the sounds of the party drifting through the open doors. Maya had built a billion-dollar company, negotiated with world leaders, commanded rooms full of powerful people. But she couldn't find words to bridge the gap that had opened between them. "I should go," Marcus said finally. Maya wanted to protest, to fight for them, but she knew he was right. She'd failed the test she hadn't even known she was taking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know you are." He leaned forward and kissed her forehead gently. "But sorry doesn't change what happened in there." As she watched him disappear into the elevator, Maya felt something break inside her chest. She'd spent the evening surrounded by her peers, but she'd never felt more alone. A week passed without contact. Maya threw herself into work, or what passed for work, now that she'd been ousted from her own company. She met with lawyers about non-compete clauses, fielded calls from headhunters, and pretended to care about board positions and consulting opportunities. But everything felt hollow. Food had no taste. Her penthouse felt like a museum. Even the ocean view from her deck looked gray and lifeless. She'd lost men before, to other women, to career conflicts, to simple incompatibility. But this felt different. This felt like she'd lost a part of herself. On Saturday morning, unable to stand another moment in her empty house, Maya found herself driving toward the desert. She told herself she wasn't looking for Marcus, that she just needed space to think. But when she reached the bus stop where she'd first dropped him off, she parked and waited. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, turning the asphalt into a griddle. Maya sat in her air-conditioned car, feeling foolish and desperate, but unable to leave. The 3:15 bus arrived in a cloud of diesel exhaust. Several passengers got off, but Marcus wasn't among them. Maya's heart sank. But as the bus pulled away, she saw him walking along the shoulder, heading toward the mountains with his familiar pack. She drove slowly alongside him until he noticed her car and stopped. "Maya." No surprise in his voice, just resignation. She rolled down her window. "Can we talk?" "Depends. You here to apologize again, or you here to change?" The bluntness of the question caught her off guard. What's the difference?" "Apologizing is words. Changing is action." He adjusted his pack straps. "I've heard plenty of apologies from people who never intended to change anything." Maya turned off the engine and got out of the car. The desert heat hit her immediately, but she ignored it. "You're right about everything. I did bring you to that party to prove something. And I did let them treat you like my charity project instead of my partner." Marcus said nothing, just watched her with those intelligent eyes. "I've been rich my entire adult life," she continued. "I forgot what it's like to not have power in a room, to be dismissed because of who you are instead of what you've accomplished. I protected my own comfort instead of standing up for you. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to be that person anymore. Because losing you made me realize that all the success and money in the world doesn't matter if I can't be brave enough to choose love over acceptance." A hawk circled overhead, its cry echoing off the rocks. Marcus shifted his weight, but didn't respond. "I quit Apex completely," Maya said. "Sold all my shares, walked away from the board seat, everything." Now she had his attention. "Why?" "Because you were right about something else too. I was holding on to a company that had betrayed everything I believed in just because it was mine. Just because walking away felt like losing." She took a breath. "But sometimes walking away is the only way to win." Marcus set down his pack. "So what are you going to do now?" Maya pulled a folder from her car, the same kind of manila folder Marcus had carried his bus schedules and volunteer paperwork in. Inside were business plans, budget projections, and architectural sketches. "I want to build something new, with you if you'll have me." She handed him the folder. It's rough, but the idea is a desert rescue training center. Part school, part emergency response station. Somewhere people can learn real wilderness skills, where volunteers can coordinate search and rescue operations. Marcus flipped through the pages, his expression unreadable. This would cost about $2 million to start, $5 million to do it right. Maya watched his face. I've got $12 million in liquid assets from the Apex sale. For the first time in my life, I know exactly how I want to spend it. What do you know about running a nonprofit? Nothing. What do you know about being an executive director? Nothing. They looked at each other, and Maya saw something shift in his expression. Not forgiveness exactly, but possibility. Why rescue work, he asked. Because that's what you did for me. You rescued me when I was broken down in the middle of nowhere. And not just my car, you rescued me from a life I'd stopped questioning, from becoming someone I didn't recognize. Marcus closed the folder and looked out at the vast landscape around them. You know this won't be easy. Building something like this from scratch, dealing with bureaucracy, fighting for funding. I know. And I meant what I said at the party. I don't fit in your world. I'm not going to become someone I'm not to make your life easier. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me build a new world. One where we both belong. For a long moment, they stood in the desert silence. Then Marcus shouldered his pack and started walking toward the mountains. Where are you going? Maya called after him. To show you something. If we're going to do this, you need to understand what we're really trying to save. 6 months later, groundbreaking day dawned clear and bright in the high desert east of Joshua Tree. Maya stood at the edge of what would become the Mojave Desert Rescue Center, watching surveyors mark out the foundation lines while architectural drawings fluttered in the constant wind. The design was elegant in its simplicity. Low adobe buildings that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than dominate it. Solar panels angled to catch the morning sun, cisterns to collect and store rainwater. The main structure would house classrooms, equipment storage, and coordination offices. Smaller buildings would provide lodging for extended training programs and emergency response teams. Second thoughts? Marcus asked, appearing beside her with 2 cups of coffee from the food truck they'd hired for the workers. 100 of them, Maya admitted, but not about this. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of permitting battles, environmental impact studies, and fundraising meetings. Maya had used her connections shamelessly, calling in favors from former colleagues and leveraging her reputation to open doors. But it was Marcus who'd won over the local community, spending countless hours in town halls and coffee shops, explaining their vision to people who had every reason to be skeptical of another rich outsider's pet project. The county inspector wants to meet with us at 11, Marcus said, checking his phone. Something about the septic system design. Of course he does, Maya sighed. Remember when our biggest worry was whether to use steel or timber framing? I remember when our biggest worry was whether you'd ever speak to me again. That earned him a smile. Things between them had been rebuilt slowly, carefully, with the kind of attention Marcus gave to everything he constructed. Trust had to be re-earned. Vulnerability had to be relearned. But somehow, working together toward a common goal had clarified what mattered. They'd bought a small house together in 29 Palms, nothing like Maya's Malibu penthouse, but comfortable and theirs. Maya had sold the Pacific Palisades house, donating most of the proceeds to the rescue center. She kept a small apartment in LA for business meetings, but her real home was now a 10-minute drive from where they stood. Maya Chen? They turned to see a young woman approaching, microphone in hand, followed by a cameraman. Maya recognized her as a reporter from the local news station who'd been covering the project. Miss Chen, I'm Sarah Martinez from KCDZ. Could I ask you a few questions about today's groundbreaking? Maya glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. She'd been doing more press lately, not the fawning tech media profiles of her Apex days, but local newspapers and community radio, explaining their mission to the people who would actually use the center. Of course, this is quite a departure from your previous work in telecommunications. What inspired you to focus on desert rescue? The desert changed my life, Maya said simply. It taught me the difference between being connected and being isolated, between building technology and building community. This center is about giving people the skills they need to take care of each other. And Mr. Brooks, Sarah turned to Marcus, you're leaving a successful contracting business to run this nonprofit. That's quite a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice, Marcus replied. It's an investment. In the desert, in the community, in something bigger than profit margins. What makes this different from other wilderness programs? Maya and Marcus exchanged a look. They discussed this question hundreds of times over late-night planning sessions. Most wilderness programs are about recreation, Maya said. This is about responsibility. We're training people not just to hike safely, but to help others in crisis. Every person who completes our program becomes part of a network of desert guardians. Mr. Brooks, you've been critical of what you call parachute philanthropy. Wealthy outsiders deciding what communities need without asking them. How is this different? Marcus smiled. Because we didn't decide what the community needed. We listened. The idea for the rescue center came from conversations with local search and rescue volunteers who were overwhelmed by the number of emergencies. The training programs were suggested by high school teachers who wanted their students to have real job skills. The design reflected input from Native American community leaders who understand the spiritual significance of this landscape. After the interview, Maya and Marcus walked the perimeter of the construction site. In a few months, this would be a functioning facility, training its first class of wilderness first aid instructors. In a year, it would be coordinating rescue operations across a 100-square-mile area. You know what the best part is? Maya said, watching a desert tortoise cross their path with prehistoric dignity. What's that? We're not building this for the approval of people in boardrooms or the validation of peers at industry conferences. We're building it because it needs to exist. Marcus stopped walking and pulled her into his arms. You know what the best part is for me? What? Building it with you. 2 years later, the Mojave Desert Rescue Center stood as a testament to what could be built with patience, purpose, and partnership. The adobe buildings had weathered their first seasons beautifully, taking on the golden patina of the desert itself. Solar panels gleamed on every roof, and the gardens, designed by local master gardener volunteers, bloomed with native plants that required minimal water but maximum beauty. Maya stood in the main classroom, watching Marcus demonstrate wilderness first aid to a diverse group of students, a retired teacher from Palm Springs, 2 college students from UC Riverside, a veteran adjusting to civilian life, and a mother of 3 who wanted to be prepared for family camping trips. The program had evolved beyond anything they'd initially imagined, drawing people from across Southern California who wanted to learn not just survival skills, but how to be helpful in crisis. The first rule of desert rescue, Marcus was saying, adjusting a splint on the practice dummy, is that anyone can need help. Rich, poor, experienced, inexperienced, the desert doesn't discriminate. It's our job not to discriminate either. Maya smiled at the familiar words. Over the past 2 years, they'd saved 43 people. Hikers with heat exhaustion, motorists stranded by flash floods, rock climbers with broken bones, elderly bird watchers who'd wandered off marked trails. The center had become the regional hub for search and rescue coordination, working closely with county sheriff departments and the National Park Service. Miss Chen? A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a young Latina woman, perhaps 19, wearing the khaki uniform of the center's paid intern program. Call me Maya, please. What can I do for you, Carmen? There's someone here to see you. Says he's from the MacArthur Foundation? Maya felt her stomach drop. The MacArthur Foundation had been considering the rescue center for one of their large community investment grants. Money that could expand their operations significantly and put them on permanently stable financial ground. She'd been expecting a call, not a surprise visit. In the main office, she found a man in his 50s wearing pressed khakis and a button-down shirt that screamed federal funder. He was examining the photos covering one wall, pictures from rescues, graduations from their training programs, and community events. Dr. Peterson, I'm Maya Chen. I wasn't expecting you until next week. Miss Chen, please call me Paul. I apologize for the surprise visit, but I was in the area and couldn't resist stopping by. He gestured to the photo wall. These are remarkable. Thank you. Would you like a tour? For the next hour, Maya showed Paul through the facility, explaining their programs and philosophy. They visited the equipment bay, where students learned to set up rescue gear, the communications center that coordinated search operations, and the dormitory where participants in their intensive programs stayed. "How many people have you trained so far?" Paul asked as they walked. 417 in various programs, everything from basic wilderness first aid to advanced search and rescue techniques. Maya paused at the memorial wall, where they honored the two people they hadn't been able to save, an elderly man who'd suffered a massive heart attack before rescuers could reach him, and a young woman who'd fallen in a slot canyon during a flash flood. "We've had a 95% success rate for people still alive when we locate them." Impressive statistics? And the community response? See for yourself. Maya led him outside, where the monthly community barbecue was getting underway. Tables groaned under potluck dishes, brought by volunteers, staff, former students, and neighbors. Children played in the shade of ramadas, while adults shared stories and planned upcoming projects. Marcus appeared at Maya's side, having finished his class. He'd changed from his instructor clothes into jeans and a t-shirt, but still commanded attention as people approached him with questions about training schedules and equipment recommendations. "Paul Peterson, MacArthur Foundation," Maya introduced. "This is Marcus Brooks, our executive director and head of training operations." "Mr. Brooks, I've read impressive things about your background. Self-taught emergency medicine, innovative training methods. I had good teachers," Marcus said simply, "and I've tried to pass on what they taught me." An older Native American man approached their group. "Maya, Marcus, I wanted to thank you again for the scholarship program. My granddaughter just passed her EMT certification." "James, this is Paul Peterson from MacArthur. Paul, James Clearwater. He's been instrumental in helping us understand the cultural significance of the areas where we operate." James shook Paul's hand firmly. "These two, they didn't come in here thinking they knew everything. They listened, they asked questions. They respected that we've been taking care of this land for thousands of years." Paul spent another hour at the barbecue, talking to volunteers, former students, and community members. Maya watched him taking mental notes, clearly impressed by the organic relationships that had developed around the center. As the afternoon wound down and Paul prepared to leave, he pulled Maya and Marcus aside. "I have to say, this exceeds everything I'd hoped to find. The measurable outcomes are impressive, but the community integration is remarkable." He paused. "I'm prepared to recommend full funding, $750,000 over 3 years, with potential for renewal." Maya felt her knees go weak. The grant would ensure the center's survival and allow them to expand their programs significantly. "There is one concern the board raised," Paul continued. "Questions about your personal relationship and how it might affect organizational governance." Maya's excitement cooled instantly. "I'm sorry?" "Foundation policy requires clear separation between personal and professional relationships and leadership roles. We'd need assurance that decision-making isn't compromised by..." "By what?" Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. "By the perception of impropriety. We've seen situations where romantic relationships between co-founders led to financial irregularities, power imbalances." "Are you asking us to choose between our relationship and the funding?" Maya asked. Paul looked uncomfortable. "I'm asking for policies that ensure proper governance. Perhaps one of you stepping into an advisory role rather than day-to-day operations." Maya felt the familiar surge of anger she'd experienced at tech conferences when investors questioned her authority because of her age and gender. But this was worse. This questioned not just her competence but the integrity of the life she and Marcus had built together. "Dr. Peterson," Marcus said carefully, "with respect, this center exists because of our partnership, not just professional, but personal. The work we do here, taking care of people in crisis, building trust with communities, creating something meaningful, that comes from who we are together." "I understand your perspective." "Do you?" Maya interrupted. "Because it sounds like you're asking us to pretend that love makes people less capable of ethical decision-making rather than more committed to it." Paul sighed. "It's nothing personal. It's about foundation policy and public perception." Everything about this place is personal, Marcus said. That's why it works. That evening, after Paul had left and the barbecue cleanup was finished, Maya and Marcus sat on the porch of their small office watching the sun set over the mountains. The conversations with Paul had cast a shadow over what should have been a celebration. $750,000, Maya said eventually. I know. We could expand the dormitory, add a helicopter pad, hire more full-time staff. I know, but not if we stay together. Marcus turned to look at her. Is that what you want, to stay together? Marcus, I love you. I love what we've built together. I love the life we have. She took his hand. But I also know what it's like to choose pride over pragmatism. I walked away from a billion-dollar company because I couldn't compromise my principles. And maybe this is different. Maybe this is about something bigger than us. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful rather than hurt. When I was in foster care, I learned to hold things lightly. Don't get too attached because everything can be taken away. I've been holding on to you the same way, grateful for what we have, but ready for it to end. Marcus, but watching you fight for this place, seeing you choose authenticity over approval, you changed that for me. You showed me what it looks like to hold on to something and fight for it. He stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, looking out at the center they'd built together. The rescue center will survive with or without MacArthur money. We've proven that. But us? What we have, that's not replaceable. Maya joined him at the railing. So what do? We tell Dr. Peterson that we appreciate the foundation's interest, but the center comes as a package deal. If they can't fund an organization led by two people who love each other, they can fund someone else. Even if it means giving up $750,000? Marcus smiled and pulled her close. Some things are worth more than money. It just took me 25 years to find something that proved it. 5 years after breaking ground, the Mojave Desert Rescue Center had become something neither Maya nor Marcus had originally envisioned. Without MacArthur funding, they'd had to get creative. Crowdfunding campaigns, corporate sponsorships, training contracts with wilderness programs and government agencies. The financial uncertainty had been stressful, but it had also made them more connected to their community and more innovative in their approach. Maya stood in the expanded classroom building, watching the graduation ceremony for their latest group of wilderness emergency medical technicians. 25 students from across the Southwest had completed the intensive 6-month program, learning not just technical skills, but the philosophy of desert rescue, that everyone belongs in the wilderness, that preparation prevents tragedy, that taking care of the land means taking care of each other. Marcus stepped up to the podium to deliver the closing remarks. At 30, he'd grown into his leadership role in ways that still surprised Maya. He spoke with authority born not from position but from competence and compassion. 5 years ago, he began, a friend and I were sitting in this spot when it was nothing but scrub brush and stones. We had big dreams and bigger uncertainties. We didn't know if anyone would support what we were trying to build. He paused, looking out at the audience, graduates, families, volunteers, community leaders, and reporters from outdoor magazines and rescue organizations. Today, the people in this room represent more than 2,000 trained desert rescue volunteers across the region. You've saved lives, prevented tragedies, and shown that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they're properly prepared and deeply committed. Maya felt tears in her eyes, as she always did during these ceremonies, not just because of pride in what they'd accomplished, but because of how Marcus had grown into someone who could inspire others the way he'd inspired her. But the real success of this place isn't measured in lives saved or students graduated, Marcus continued. It's measured in the network of care we've created. Every one of you goes back to your communities with more than skills. You go back with the knowledge that you're part of something bigger. After the ceremony, as families took photos and new graduates exchanged contact information, Maya and Marcus found themselves alone on the observation deck of the main building. The desert stretched out before them, no longer foreign but home. Any regrets? Marcus asked, slipping his arm around her waist. Maya thought about the question seriously. They'd never gotten the MacArthur grant, though other foundations had eventually funded their work. She'd never returned to the tech world, though she occasionally consulted on sustainable technology projects. Their relationship had weathered challenges: financial stress, management disagreements, the constant pressure of running a nonprofit together. "Only one," she said. "What's that?" She smiled and turned in his arms. "That it took a broken-down car for me to find you." "Well," Marcus said, kissing her forehead, "some of the best rescues start with someone being lost." Behind them, the rescue center hummed with quiet activity. Students cleaning equipment, staff planning the next training session, volunteers preparing for a weekend search exercise. The memorial wall had grown to include 6 names, people they couldn't save despite their best efforts. But the success wall had grown too, filled with photos and letters from hundreds of people who'd returned home safe because someone trained at the center had been there to help. As the sun set over the Mojave, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Maya and Marcus stood together, watching the desert they'd learned to love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students, new emergencies. But tonight, surrounded by the evidence of what love could build when it was brave enough to act, they simply held each other and watched the stars emerge in the vast desert sky. In her pocket, Maya's phone buzzed with notifications she wouldn't check until morning. The outside world would always be there, demanding attention and offering distractions. But here, in this place they'd built together in the middle of nowhere, they'd found something the tech world had promised, but never delivered: true connection. The desert had taught them both that the most important things in life, love, purpose, community, couldn't be optimized or scaled or disrupted. They could only be built, day by day, choice by choice, with the same patience and care Marcus brought to everything he constructed. As they walked home together under a canopy of stars, Maya realized that she'd finally found what she'd been searching for all those years in boardrooms and conference halls. Not success or recognition or even happiness, but something rarer and more valuable: a life worth living with someone worth sharing it with. The rescue center would outlive them both. They'd made sure of that with careful succession planning and endowment building. But their real legacy wasn't the buildings or programs they'd created. It was the proof that love could be an action, that partnership could be a force for good, and that sometimes the best way to save yourself was to dedicate your life to saving others. In the distance, their radio crackled to life. Someone, somewhere in the vast desert, needed help. Together, as they had for 5 years and would for decades to come, they answered the call. Maya and Marcus's story reminds us that the most profound connections often happen when we're lost, in the desert, in life, or in ourselves. Their journey from a chance encounter to building something that saves lives shows us that love isn't just a feeling. It's a force that builds, heals, and transforms. What breakdown in your own life might actually be leading you toward your greatest rescue? Sometimes the most beautiful destinations are found when we stop trying to control the journey and start helping others along the way. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that authentic connection is still possible in our disconnected world. Because sometimes the person who saves you isn't who you expect. And sometimes saving someone else is exactly how you save yourself.